We're always told that getting into a good university comes down to one thing: hard work, your talent, your passion. But what if I told you the system itself is playing a completely different game? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on Taiwan's university admission system. We're going to look at some fascinating and honestly pretty wild analysis that shows what's really deciding your future. And it all starts with one single shocking number. Take a look at that. 71.5%. That is a huge number. And according to the data we're looking at, that's how much of a student's university placement is decided by things that have absolutely nothing to do with them. We're talking about stuff like rule changes, how hard the exams are in a given year, even what's happening in the global tech industry. So that means less than 30% is actually about you. And this quote from the source analysis just hits the nail on the head. The whole thing has become a gamble, a high-stakes game. So over the next few minutes, we are going to unpack the data behind that claim. We're going to show you exactly how this game is being played and who's being affected the most.
So where's the proof of all this? Well, it's staring us right in the face when you look at the data, specifically in just how unstable university rankings have become. You'd think that for the top universities, how hard it is to get in would be pretty consistent from one year to the next, right? Well, let's see what the numbers have to say about that.
Okay, before we dive into the chart, there's one key term you gotta know: average rank order. Just think of it as a university's difficulty score for the year. It's the average rank of the very last student to get an offer across all of its departments. So here's the crucial part. Just remember this: the smaller the number, the tougher it is to get in. All right, now look at this table. It's tracking that difficulty score for 8 major universities over about 9 years. Just let your eyes scan across any of those rows. Do you see any kind of stable pattern? Nope, not at all. For pretty much every single school, the numbers are jumping all over the place. It's totally unpredictable. Let's zoom in on one example that is particularly insane. Check out this roller coaster for National Taipei University. So back in year 107, its rank was over 15,000. Pretty accessible, right? But then, just 4 years later, boom, it plummets to under 7,300. That means the university literally more than doubled in difficulty. How is that possible? Did the students applying just magically get twice as smart in 4 years? No way. Something else, something big was going on behind the scenes. So what on earth is causing all this chaos? Well, the analysis pinpoints 4 major culprits. 4 big external factors that have been warping the entire admission landscape. Let's break them down, one by one. And here they are. First, we have changes to the actual admission rules. Then there's the wild swings in how difficult the exams are. After that, we've got major shifts in the high school curriculum itself. And finally, the newest player on the field, the absolute explosion of AI and how it's changing what everyone thinks about their future careers. Let's start with the rule changes. So, back in 2019, the system went from using up to 5 exam subjects to just 4. Now, that might sound like a really small technical tweak, right? But the impact was massive. What it actually did was split the entire student body into 2 totally separate pools, a science track and a humanities track. And from that moment on, comparing a student from one group to a student from the other became basically impossible. They weren't on a level playing field anymore. Next up, we had a perfect storm. Between 2019 and 2022, a bunch of things happened all at once. First, the math exams were weirdly easy for a couple of years. This gave science-focused students a huge leg up, and they started flooding into humanities departments. Then, in 2021, the old high school curriculum was ending. This created a mad dash. Everyone wanted to get into university that year so they wouldn't have to deal with a brand new system. And finally, when the new curriculum kicked in, nobody had any past data to go on. So what did the top students do? They played it safe, applying to schools they knew they could get into, which threw the traditional rankings into complete chaos. And what's the latest shock to the system? You guessed it, the rise of AI. This isn't a rule change, it's a culture change. It's a massive shift in the job market, and it's making everyone anxious. You've got students worrying about which jobs are going to be automated away, and it's causing this huge surge in applications for computer science and engineering. And at the same time, interest in the humanities is dropping off a cliff. So now, students are making life-altering choices based on fear and career anxiety, not necessarily on what they're truly passionate about. Okay, so we've seen the chaotic evidence and we've identified the main culprits. But how do we know for sure just how much of the blame goes to each factor?
Well, this is where the analysis gets really slick. It uses a powerful statistical method to actually put a number on all this chaos. The technique is called variance decomposition. It sounds super complicated, I know, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It takes all that variation, all that jumping up and down we saw in the university rankings, and it breaks it down. It basically assigns a percentage of the blame for all that chaos to each of the different factors involved.
And that, my friends, brings us right back to where we started. The final result from this statistical breakdown is just staggering. A whopping 71.5% of what determines where a student ends up is the system and the environment, all those outside forces we just talked about. And that leaves just 28.5% for the student's own abilities and interests. This isn't a theory. This is the statistical proof that the game is fundamentally rigged against the individual player.
So, what's the final verdict here? When you put it all together, the evidence is overwhelming. We're looking at a system where success isn't about passion or talent, it's about strategy. And that has some really serious consequences for everyone: students, universities, and honestly the whole of society. I mean, think about the downstream effects. For one, the whole selection process gets distorted. Universities can't really tell who the best candidates are anymore. This leads to a situation where strategy beats suitability. The student who is best at gaming the system gets in, not necessarily the student who is the best fit for the program. And that, in turn, forces students to give up on their true interests just to chase a scoring advantage or a safe career path. The end result of all this? A massive countrywide misallocation of talent. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this one powerful idea. A process that should be about matching talented, passionate people with the right opportunities has been twisted into a competition based purely on strategy. It's become a game where knowing the loopholes in the rules matters more than being the best person for the spot.
And all of this leaves us with one final and, I think, pretty urgent question. This entire analysis shows us that the game itself, the rules, the playing field, the random roll of the dice is what's driving the outcome. So if we know the game is fundamentally flawed, isn't it time we started seriously thinking about designing a new one?